Picture this. I'm standing in the middle of my living room, surrounded by a gallery of my own life. Every wall holds a framed memory, smiles frozen in time, places Julian and I have been, moments we've stolen from the rush of the world. And then there are the mirrors. Small, ornate ones, tucked into corners or hung beside doorframes. I can't help it. I've always needed to catch a glimpse of myself, to make sure I'm still here, still me. My name is Celeste, I'm 42, and this apartment in the heart of the city is my sanctuary. It's modern but warm, with soft gray walls and furniture that invites you to sink in and stay a while. Julian, my husband of 15 years, picked most of it out. He's got an eye for comfort, for balance. That's just who he is. Thoughtful, deliberate, a man who carries a quiet intensity in his deep-set eyes. As a therapist, he's always watching, always listening, peeling back layers of people with a patience I've never quite mastered. Our marriage is a steady thing, built on respect and the kind of routines that feel like anchors. We take evening walks in the park near our building, our steps matching without effort, or we'll sit on the balcony with mugs of coffee, watching the city hum below us. Those moments are our glue, the unspoken promises we've kept to each other. But lately, there's a shadow creeping into the spaces between us. I can't put my finger on it, not yet, but it's there. A subtle unease, like a melody you can't quite hear, but know is playing. I've caught Julian looking at me in ways that unsettle me, his gaze distant, almost puzzled, as if he's trying to solve a riddle I don't even know I've posed. It happens during the most ordinary moments, while I'm brushing my hair in the morning, or when I'm curled up on the couch with a book, lost in a story. I'll glance up, and there he is, staring, his expression unreadable. It makes me wonder what he sees, what he's searching for in me. I love him, I do. Our bond is something I cherish, something I've fought to protect through the years. But there's a disconnect growing, a silent gap I can't seem to bridge. It's as if he's trying to tell me something without words, and I'm too blind, or maybe too afraid, to understand. I find myself turning to those mirrors more often now, not just out of habit, but to reassure myself. I've done this since I was a kid, always needing to see my reflection, to confirm I'm still whole. A quick glance, a fleeting check. Am I still here? Am I still the woman Julian married? This morning, over breakfast, it happened again. We were sitting at our small kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window, catching the steam rising from our coffee cups. I was spreading jam on toast when I felt his eyes on me, heavy and searching. I looked up, expecting a smile or a casual comment, but instead, I got that same distant stare. It lingered just a moment too long before he turned away, murmuring something about a late appointment. That's when I knew I couldn't ignore this feeling anymore. Something was shifting between us, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face it. Later that evening, I found myself alone in our bedroom, the city lights casting a soft glow through the window, painting shadows across the walls. I was sorting through the day's mail, a mundane task to distract myself, when I came across an envelope with no return address, just my name scrawled across the front in a familiar, precise handwriting. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized it. Julian's. I tore it open, curious but cautious, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The note inside was brief, written in his neat, deliberate script. A villa without mirrors, 3 days, feel yourself, let yourself be seen. Below that, an address and a date, 3 days from now. I read the words over and over, a mix of puzzlement and amusement bubbling up inside me. A villa without mirrors? What was this supposed to mean? Some kind of cryptic game or metaphor? I couldn't help but laugh as I tracked Julian down in the living room, waving the note in front of him. "Is this some weird therapy retreat you've signed me up for?" I teased, expecting him to crack a smile to let me in on the joke. But he didn't laugh. He just looked at me with that same distant gaze I'd come to dread, his eyes piercing in a way that made my chest tighten. "You lack your own reflection, Celeste," he said quietly, his voice steady, but laced with something I couldn't place. "I want you to find it." His words hit me like a cold wave, stinging in a way I didn't expect. I didn't fully understand what he meant, but the weight of it settled over me, heavy and unshakable. I stood there speechless for a moment, before muttering something about thinking it over. But deep down, I already knew I'd go. Not because I believed in whatever this was, but because I needed to know why he thought I had to. The next few days passed in a blur, and before I knew it, I was packing a small bag with just the essentials: clothes, a notebook, a few toiletries. Curiosity had won out over skepticism, though I couldn't shake the unease that clung to me like a second skin. The morning of the trip, I set out alone, driving an hour outside the city to the address Julian had given me. The landscape changed as I went, the urban sprawl giving way to rolling hills and dense clusters of trees that seemed to close in around the narrow road. It felt like I was leaving the world behind, stepping into a quieter, more isolated place where the air felt heavier, almost sacred. I arrived at the villa just as the sun was dipping low, casting golden streaks across the old stone facade. It was a beautiful, weathered place, surrounded by wildflowers and ancient oaks, with no hint of modernity to break the spell. Stepping inside, I was struck by the simplicity of it all: bare walls, wooden furniture, and, true to Julian's note, not a single mirror in sight. That's when I met Lucian, the caretaker of the villa. He greeted me with a quiet nod, his presence calm but commanding. He's older than me, maybe in his late 50s, with weathered hands and eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 untold stories. His voice when he spoke was low and gravelly, offering only the essentials: a quick tour, a mention of where I'd sleep, and a promise to be nearby if I needed anything. That first day with Lucien was unlike anything I'd expected. We spent hours in a sunlit room at the back of the villa, the kind of space that feels like it's been untouched by time. The wooden floors creaked softly underfoot as I walked barefoot, the cool, smooth texture grounding me in a way I hadn't felt in years. Without mirrors to distract me, my senses seemed to sharpen. Every sound, every touch, every breath felt amplified. I could hear the faint rustle of leaves outside the open window, the distant call of a bird, and even the steady rhythm of my own heartbeat. Lucian sat across from me on a worn armchair, not pushing for conversation, just being there. His silence wasn't awkward, it was comforting, like a shared understanding that words weren't necessary. Every so often, he'd make a small gesture, refilling my tea from a chipped ceramic pot, or tilting his head toward the window to point out a sparrow perched on a branch. I found myself watching his hands as he moved, rough and deliberate, and I couldn't help but notice how present he seemed, how fully in the moment. As the hours passed, I started to feel my body in a way I hadn't in years. Each breath I took felt intentional, each movement deliberate. I'd shift in my seat, and the creak of the chair would echo in the quiet room, reminding me I was here, really here. My fingers brushed against the armrest, tracing the grain of the wood, and I felt a strange connection to the space, to myself. I wasn't checking my reflection or worrying about how I looked. I was just existing. And Lucian, he seemed to sense it too. Late in the afternoon, as the golden light softened into a warm amber glow, he reached out and touched my hand. It was slow, intentional, his calloused fingers brushing against mine as we sat side by side on a small bench near the window. My breath caught, but I didn't pull away. The touch was electric, sending a jolt through me, awakening something deep and dormant inside. His hand lingered, then moved to my waist, a gentle but firm pressure that felt like a question. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. The moment stretched on, heavy with unspoken permission, the air between us thick with something I couldn't name. In that quiet room, with no mirrors to judge or reflect, I gave in to the pull. Lucian and I crossed a boundary I never thought I'd cross, a line I'd drawn so firmly in my mind over the years. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was slow, deliberate, almost reverent, as if we were both uncovering something essential, something true. There was only skin and breath, the warmth of his touch against me, the sound of my own breathing ragged in my ears, the texture of the wooden floor cool beneath us as we moved together. I betrayed Julian in that silence, in a space where there were no reflections to remind me of who I was supposed to be. And yet, afterward, as I lay there, the weight of Lucian's arm across me, I felt a clarity I'd never known before. It was as if I'd seen myself for the first time, not through a mirror's gaze, but through touch, through presence. I felt truly seen, stripped bare in a way that I'm alone now, back in my room at the villa, the quiet pressing in around me like a heavy fog. The events of the past days swirl in my mind, a storm I can't quite escape. My hands tremble as I sit on the edge of the bed, staring at the small, unassuming box that Julian had left for me to find on this final day. It's been sitting on the dresser since I arrived, unnoticed until now, as if it was waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. I don't know what's inside, but the weight of it in my hands feels like a confession, a secret I'm not sure I'm ready to hear. My fingers fumble with the latch, the metal cool against my skin, and when it finally clicks open, my breath catches. Nestled inside is a small tablet, its screen already flickering to life, as if it knew I'd be here at this exact moment. Julian's face appears, his familiar features sharp against the dim glow, but there's a heaviness in his eyes, a sadness that cuts through me like a blade. His voice comes through, steady and measured, each word deliberate, as if he's been rehearsing this for a long time. I'm not losing you, Celeste. I'm giving you to yourself, to another space, another gaze. If you return, come back as you. I sit frozen, the tablet still in my hands, his words echoing in the hollow space of the room. I play the recording again, and then a third time, each repetition sinking deeper into my bones. He knew. Somehow, he knew what this place, this time away, would do to me. He orchestrated it, not out of malice or spite, but out of something else, something I can barely grasp. A desire for me to rediscover myself, to peel back the layers I've hidden behind for so long, even if it meant letting me go in this way. My chest tightens with a flood of emotions I can't untangle. Gratitude for his selflessness, guilt for what I've done with Lucian, and a profound confusion about what this means for us. How could he love me enough to set me free like this, knowing the risks, knowing I might not come back the same? I set the tablet down, my hands still shaking, and stare at the empty walls of the room, wishing for a mirror to look into, to see if I can recognize myself after hearing his voice, after feeling the weight of his intent. The final hours of this third day slip away as I wander the villa's grounds, the gravel crunching under my feet, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the wildflower fields. Without mirrors, I've had no choice but to feel my presence rather than see it, to sit with myself in a way I never have before. Every step I take feels heavier, laden with the realization that I've spent my life hiding behind reflections, using them to define who I am, to assure myself I exist. Even Lucian's touch, though a betrayal of everything I thought I stood for, became a kind of mirror, a way to see myself through someone else's gaze. to feel my edges through his hands. I stop by an ancient oak, its gnarled branches reaching out like arms, and lean against its rough bark, letting the texture ground me. I've been so afraid of losing myself that I never stop to ask who I really am beneath the surface, beneath the polished image I've clung to. Julian's words play in my mind again, a loop I can't escape. He wanted me to find my own reflection, not in glass, but in experience, in raw, unfiltered moments. And I think I have, even if it came at a cost I never anticipated. As I walk back toward the villa, the decision forms in my mind, solid and unshakable. I'm going to return home, not as the Celeste who left 3 days ago, but as someone stronger, freer, more aware of the shape of my own soul. I felt myself in ways I never thought possible, and though the guilt of my actions with Lucien lingers like a shadow, it's accompanied by a clarity I can't ignore. As I drive back into the city, the familiar skyline emerges on the horizon, a jagged silhouette against the deepening dusk. The city lights flicker like distant stars, scattered across the vast canvas of night, and I feel a strange mix of anticipation and dread tightening in my chest. I've been gone only 3 days, but it feels like a lifetime. The weight of what I've experienced at the villa clings to me, heavy and unshakable, as I navigate the streets that lead me back to our apartment. My hands grip the steering wheel a little too tightly, my knuckles pale under the strain. I keep replaying Julian's message in my mind, his voice steady and piercing, telling me to come back as myself. But who is that now? I'm not sure I have the answer, not yet, but I know I can't hide from him or from what I've done. I pull into the parking garage beneath our building, the hum of the engine fading into silence as I cut it off. For a moment, I just sit there, staring at the concrete wall in front of me, my breath shallow. The guilt is a living thing inside me, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. What I shared with Lucien wasn't just a fleeting lapse. It was a betrayal, a crack in the foundation of everything Julian and I have built. Yet beneath that guilt, there's something else, a quiet strength, a sense of self I hadn't known I could feel. I've spent so long looking for myself in mirrors, in fleeting glances, but at the villa, I felt my own presence, raw and unfiltered. And now, I have to face Julian with that truth, whatever it means for us. I step out of the car, the cool air of the garage brushing against my skin as I make my way to the elevator. Each step feels heavier than the last, my small bag slung over my shoulder like an anchor. The ride up to our floor is agonizingly slow, the soft ding of each passing level echoing in the confined space. My heart pounds in my chest, a frantic rhythm I can't control. What will I see in his eyes when he looks at me? Will he know? Will he sense the change, the fracture I've caused? I don't have answers, but I know I can't turn back now. I've come too far, felt too much, to pretend I'm the same woman who left this place 3 days ago. When I reach our door, I hesitate, my hand hovering over the handle. The hallway is quiet, the faint hum of the city seeping through the walls, a reminder of the world moving on outside. I don't knock. I don't need to. Before my fingers even graze the wood, the door swings open, and there he is, Julian, standing in the threshold, his silhouette framed by the warm light spilling from inside. He doesn't say a word, doesn't ask where I've been or why I'm trembling. His face is unreadable, a mask of calm that hides whatever storm might be brewing beneath. But his eyes, those deep, searching eyes, hold no anger, no accusation. Instead, there's a quiet depth, a stillness that feels almost like understanding. It unnerves me. How he can look at me like that, as if he already knows everything I've been carrying. We stand there for a moment, caught in the silence of the doorway, the weight of everything unspoken hanging heavy between us. I want to speak, to spill out apologies or explanations, to fill the quiet with something, anything, that might ease the tension coiling inside me. But before I can find the words, he reaches out. His hand moves slowly, deliberately, and then his fingers brush against my cheek. The touch is so tender, so unexpected, that it nearly breaks me. I feel the warmth of his palm against my skin, a stark contrast to the coolness of the evening air, and it's like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of my own turmoil. That simple gesture anchors me, grounding me in a way I haven't felt since I left this place. My breath catches, a shudder running through me, and I close my eyes for just a second, letting myself feel it. As Julian's hand lingers on my cheek, I feel the world steady itself, just for a moment. I open my eyes and meet his gaze, searching for something, judgment, pain, anything that might tell me what he's thinking. But there's only that quiet depth, a reservoir of patience I don't fully understand. We step inside together, the door closing softly behind us, and the familiar scent of our apartment wraps around me like a memory. The soft gray walls, the framed photographs, the warmth of the space. It's all still here, unchanged, while I feel like a stranger in my own home. I set my bag down by the couch, my movements slow, almost cautious, as if I'm afraid to disturb the fragile balance between us. The days since my return have unfolded in a kind of quiet rhythm, one I didn't expect. Julian and I don't talk about the villa, about what happened there, or about the recording he left for me. We don't mention Lucian, and I'm grateful for the silence on that front, though it hangs between us like a shadow neither of us dares to touch. Instead, we rebuild in smaller, softer ways. Over morning coffee, we share glances that carry more weight than words ever could, his eyes catching mine over the rim of his mug. A flicker of something unspoken passing through them. We take longer walks in the park near our building, our steps falling into sync as the autumn leaves crunch beneath our feet. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth, and I find myself breathing deeper, feeling the coolness fill my lungs. Those moments of silence between us aren't empty anymore. They're fuller, heavier, with a shared understanding that doesn't need to be named. It's as if we're learning each other again, piece by piece, without the need to rush or force anything into place. I've started taking down the mirrors in our apartment, one by one. It began with the small, ornate one by the front door, the one I used to glance at every time I left the house. I carried it up to the attic, my hands steady as I wrapped it in an old blanket and tucked it away. Then the one in the hallway, and the larger one in our bedroom. Each time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a quiet release I hadn't anticipated. I don't need them anymore. I don't need to check if I'm still here, still whole. I feel my presence now, in the way my feet press into the floor as I walk, in the warmth of Julian's gaze when he looks at me, in the way I move through the world with a certainty I didn't have before. It's not about seeing myself reflected back. It's about knowing I exist, fully and completely, in my own skin. Looking back, I can admit something I couldn't have said aloud even a week ago. I liked what happened at the villa. I don't regret it. Not because it was right or moral, but because it gave me back to myself. It stripped away the layers I'd built up over the years, the ones I hid behind in those endless reflections. What I did with Lucien was a betrayal, a fracture in the trust Julian and I have nurtured for so long, and I carry that guilt like a stone in my chest. But it also cracked me open, forced me to feel my own edges, to confront the parts of myself I'd ignored for too long. I can't undo it, and I'm not sure I would, even if I could. That experience, as messy and complicated as it was, became a bridge to this version of me, the one who stands a little taller, who breathes a little easier, who doesn't need a mirror to know she's real. Tonight, I find myself on our balcony, the city sprawling below us like a sea of flickering lights. The air is cool against my skin, carrying the faint hum of traffic and the distant wail of a siren. Julian stands beside me, his presence a quiet anchor in the vastness of the night. His hand rests lightly on my back, a gentle pressure that feels like a promise, or maybe a question. I don't turn to look at him. I don't need to, because in this moment, words are unnecessary, and the silence between us speaks volumes. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.